The moment a long-held secret is finally exposed, the air in the room changes instantly. It is a physical, heavy sensation. It doesn't look like the explosive, screaming arguments we see in Hollywood movies. In real life, true betrayal is freezing. It is a cold, paralyzing silence where your heart drops into your stomach, and for a few seconds, you forget how to breathe. When Alison stood in the kitchen, holding that printed credit report, and David walked through the door, the world didn't stop turning outside. But inside their home, the past 7 years were instantly shattered. David took one look at her face, looked at the paper in her shaking hand, and he knew. The game was over. The exhausting, terrifying web of lies he had spun for 3 long years had finally collapsed under its own weight. He didn't try to deny it. He didn't make up another excuse. His knees literally gave out, and he sat down on the floor right there in the hallway, putting his face in his hands, and began to weep. It was the sound of a man who was completely broken, a man who had been running a marathon of deception and had finally hit a brick wall. But for Alison, his tears didn't bring comfort. They brought a terrifying sense of vertigo. If you have ever been deeply lied to, you know this feeling. You don't just look at the $40,000 of debt. Your mind instantly races backward in time. You start replaying every memory, every anniversary, every quiet weekend trip, and every time he looked you in the eyes and said, "Everything is fine, honey, I'm just tired from work." You look at the person you sleep next to every night, and a horrifying question takes root in your soul: who are you? Was any of our love real, or was my entire life just a beautifully constructed illusion? To understand how a good person, a loving partner, ends up in this position, we have to look into a very dark corner of human psychology. It is what therapists call the liar's logic. And as we break this down, I want you to ask yourself honestly, have you ever walked along the edge of this exact same path? David did not set out to hurt Alison. He didn't hide the money because he wanted to spend it on a secret life, luxury goods, or another woman. The terrifying truth about financial infidelity is that it is almost never driven by greed. It is driven by a much more primitive, suffocating emotion: shame. David's entire identity as a man was built on the traditional idea of being the provider. He was the successful architect. He was the one who was supposed to have everything under control. When his business began to struggle, admitting the truth to Alison didn't just mean saying, "We have less money." To his ego, it meant admitting, "I am a failure. I am not enough to protect you." So, he made the first small choice to protect his pride. He took out that first hidden credit card. And this is where the trap snapped shut. It starts with a thought that many of us have had: I will fix this before they ever find out. It's just a temporary problem. I am doing this for us. This is the ultimate psychological lie we tell ourselves to justify our dishonesty. We reframe our cowardice as protection. We tell ourselves we are keeping a secret to save our partner from worry, when in reality, we are keeping the secret to save ourselves from the humiliation of being seen as vulnerable, weak, or imperfect. Once you take that first step, a psychological phenomenon known as the sunk cost fallacy takes over your brain. David thought, well, I'm already $5,000 deep in a lie. If I tell her now, she'll be furious. But if I just borrow another $5,000, I can fix the business, pay off the first card, and then I'll tell her a clean story. If you have ever hidden a price tag from your partner, if you have ever transferred money between accounts hoping they wouldn't notice, if you have ever bought something and immediately hidden the box in the trash outside before they came home, you know the heavy anxiety of that slippery slope. You stop seeing money as currency, and you start seeing it as a shield to hide your deep-seated insecurities. But every hidden dollar is another brick you lay in a wall that cuts you off from the person who loves you. The days following the discovery are often described by couples as a living nightmare. The explosion is over, but now you have to live in the radioactive ash. For Alison and David, the weeks that followed were filled with a profound, exhausting grief. Alison experienced what psychologists compare to relational trauma. When the foundation of trust is ripped away, your brain goes into a permanent state of survival. It refuses to turn off. If you have ever experienced this kind of betrayal, you know the hypervigilance that takes over your life. Every time David's phone buzzed on the coffee table, Alison's heart would violently race. Every time he was 15 minutes late coming home from the office, her mind didn't think, "Oh, there's traffic." Her traumatized brain instantly thought, "What else is he hiding? What is the new lie?" The tragedy of financial infidelity is that the emotional damage is far worse than the financial debt. $40,000 can be repaid with a strict budget, extra work, and time. But how do you repair the fact that for 3 years, the person you shared your dinners with, the person you laughed with, was wearing a psychological mask? David had to face his own living hell, the look of absolute disgust and fear in the eyes of the woman he loved. Every time he tried to apologize, his words felt empty. He realized that when you lie to someone for years, your "I'm sorry" doesn't sound like repentance, it sounds like another manipulation. He had to sit in the uncomfortable, burning fire of his own guilt. He had to listen to Alison scream, listen to her cry, and accept her silence without getting defensive. And this is where most relationships fail. When the betrayer is confronted with the massive pain they caused, their ego often cannot handle the shame. They get angry. They say things like, "It was 3 weeks ago. Why are you still bringing it up?" Or, "I said I was sorry, what else do you want from me?" But David, with the help of intense therapy, did something different. He stayed in the room. He let her pain break his heart, over and over again, realizing that he was the one who broke it in the first place. So, how do you fix a love that has been burned to the ground? Can trust truly be rebuilt from absolute zero? The answer is yes, but it requires a process that is incredibly painful and completely unglamorous. It started for them with a concept called radical transparency. David had to completely surrender his right to financial privacy. He didn't just show her his bank statements. He handed Alison his phone, gave her all his passwords, put her name on every account, and set up automatic notifications so that every single dollar he spent sent a text message directly to her phone. He had to accept that for a long, long time, he had to live his life in an open glass box. He had traded his privacy for the privilege of keeping his marriage. But the real transformation didn't happen on a computer screen. It happened when David had to learn to say 4 of the most terrifying words in the English language: "I am struggling today." He had to learn to come home, look Alison in the eyes, and say, "The business had a terrible week. I feel terrified, and I feel like a failure right now." And in doing that, he discovered something beautiful that his shame had hidden from him for years. Alison didn't need a perfect, bulletproof provider. She didn't marry a business model. She married a human being. She wanted his honesty, his presence, and his heart, not an illusion of financial perfection. Today, Alison and David are still together. The $40,000 of debt is almost completely paid off, but that is the least interesting part of their story. The real victory is that the heavy, suffocating silence in their home has evaporated. They are closer now than they were on their wedding day, because their new house is built on bedrock, not on sand. As we close this story tonight, I want to leave you with a question to carry into your own life. Look closely into your own relationship, or into your own heart. Is there a secret you are keeping right now? Is there a purchase, a debt, a habit, or a fear that you are hiding because you are terrified of looking imperfect in the eyes of the person you love? Remember this: the fear of telling the truth is always massive, but it is nothing compared to the catastrophic destruction of the truth being discovered. True intimacy cannot exist where secrets live. Love isn't about having a perfect life together. It's about being brave enough to show your partner your mess, your mistakes, and your broken pieces, and realizing that when you stand in the light together, you are finally, truly safe. Thank you for spending this evening with us at Hearts and Minds Lab. If Alison and David's journey resonated with you, if it felt like a mirror to something you are carrying, please leave a comment below. Let's keep exploring the deep corners of our hearts, together.